"I don't need a cake," the old man said, his voice thin as paper. "I just want to hear one more good song before I go." His neighbor, Darlene, had said it almost as a joke when she called the community center. Old Clement Ashby turns 82 on Saturday, and his one wish is to hear live music. He hasn't left his porch in months. She hadn't expected anyone to actually show up. She certainly hadn't expected Willa Dean. Willa was 26, a small-town singer from Grover's Hollow who played weekend sets at the Lantern House Cafe for tips and the occasional birthday party booking. She had a voice that made people set down their coffee cups and go still. She had never been on a stage larger than a VFW hall. She drove a 2009 Honda with a cracked dashboard and kept her guitar in a case held shut with a bungee cord. When she saw the community center posting, singer needed, no pay, elderly man, birthday, Saturday morning, she didn't hesitate for longer than it took to read it twice. She showed up at Clement Ashby's house on Birchwood Lane at 10 in the morning with her guitar and a paper bag of blueberry muffins she'd baked herself. Clement was sitting in his porch chair when she came up the walk, wrapped in a cardigan despite the warmth, his hands resting on his knees the way very old and very tired people rest, as though stillness itself requires effort. He watched her come up the steps without speaking. His eyes were dark and clear, the eyes of a man whose body had slowed, but whose mind had not. "You came," he said simply. Willa set her guitar case down and held out the bag. "I brought muffins, too, in case the singing isn't enough." Something moved across his face, not quite a smile yet, but the beginning of one. "Sit down, then," he said, "and tell me your name before you sing. I like to know who I'm listening to." She played for 40 minutes on that porch. Old songs, mostly, ones she sensed he'd know. His neighbor, Darlene, sat on the steps, and two elderly women from down the street drifted over without being invited, drawn by the sound the way people are drawn to open fires. Clement closed his eyes for most of it. Once, during a slow hymn, his lips moved with the words without making a sound. Darlene, without telling anyone, had been recording on her phone since the second song. She posted the video that evening with a simple caption, "My neighbor just turned 82. A young singer named Willa Dean showed up for free and gave him this. Watch his face." By Sunday morning, it had been shared 40,000 times. Willa didn't know about any of it. She had driven home Saturday afternoon, returned the bungee cord to its hook by the door, and made herself a sandwich. She thought about Clement the way you think about something that settled something in you, quietly, without drama. She thought about the way he'd said "you came," as if he'd half expected to be forgotten. She didn't know what his dying wish was. She didn't know that he had one. What she didn't know was that Clement Ashby had a son. Radford Ashby was 33 years old. He ran a logistics company out of Charlotte that he had built from nothing over 8 years, and which had made him, by any conventional measure, successful. He and his father had been estranged for 6 years, not from cruelty, but from the slow accumulation of missed calls, postponed visits, and the particular stubbornness of two men who both believed the other one should reach first. Radford had told himself he would visit soon. He had been telling himself this for 2 years. He saw the video on Sunday morning. A colleague sent it with no message, just a link. He watched it 3 times. His father's face in the video, the closed eyes, the moving lips, the expression of a man receiving something he had almost stopped expecting, undid something in Radford that he had kept carefully fastened for 6 years. He was in his car within the hour. He arrived at Birchwood Lane in the early afternoon. Clement was on the porch again, in the same chair, a cup of tea going cold at his elbow. When Radford came up the walk, slower than Willa had, heavier in his steps, Clement looked at him for a long moment without speaking. "You saw the video," Clement said. Radford stopped at the foot of the steps. He was a large man,
broad-shouldered, the kind of man who looked comfortable taking up space. But standing there, he looked like someone who had forgotten where to put his hands. "I should have come sooner," he said. His voice was low. "I know that. I've known it for a long time." Clement looked at his son. The silence between them held years of unsaid things, not all of them painful, but all of them heavy. Then the old man exhaled slowly and said, "Come sit down, Radford. The tea's cold, but I can make more." It wasn't forgiveness in a single sentence. It was the door opening. That was enough. 3 days later, Radford called the Lantern House Cafe and asked for Willa Dean's contact. The owner gave it without asking why. The video had reached the cafe too, and everyone in Grover's Hollow knew Willa's name by now. When Radford called and explained who he was, Willa went quiet for a moment. "I didn't know he had a son," she said. "I know. That's partly my fault." A pause. "I want to thank you. Not with money. I know you'd probably say no. I just wanted you to know that whatever you did on that porch on Saturday, it reached further than you knew." Willa sat down on her kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, phone pressed to her ear. She thought about Clement's closed eyes, his lips moving to words he still knew by heart. "He just wanted to hear one good song," she said quietly. "That didn't seem like a hard thing to give." "It was the hardest thing in the world," Radford said, "because no one else thought to do it." Clement Ashby's dying wish, the one Darlene had known about and kept gently private, was simply to see his son again before the end. He had told her over tea one afternoon, offhandedly, the way people confess the truest things. He hadn't asked anyone to arrange it. He hadn't called Radford himself. He had only wished. A 26-year-old singer with a bungee-corded guitar case unknowingly made it happen, not through intervention or strategy, but through the simple act of showing up when she didn't have to. Months later, when a journalist asked Willa what she had been thinking when she drove to that house, she said something that stayed with the people who read it long after everything else faded. "I just thought someone asked, and I could. That's usually enough reason." Kindness doesn't require a grand stage. Sometimes it only requires a porch, a guitar, and the willingness to show up for a stranger's ordinary, extraordinary need to feel that someone cared enough to come. The song you sing for one person may reach the ears of someone who needed it most, even someone you'll never meet. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.